The September 4th work session of Swarthmore Borough Council is called to order. I see all accounted and all present, I should say, accounted for, including our mayor, Tim Carney, and Borough Manager Jane Billings, and Borough Solicitor Bob Scott. This is a work session, so we're going to have two public comment periods. The first one is now. So anyone who would care to address council, please come forward to the lectern. State your name and address, and tell us what's on your mind. Anyone?
Yes, it is.
Speak into the microphone.
I will.
Hello. Hi, everyone. New resident. Moved all the way from Sweden to Swarthmore. Thank you. So, my name is Tobias Dagergaard. I have one wife, 2 kids. Live on. Spell that Tobias. You would say Tobias. My parents say Tobias. That's how we say it. Live on 209 Yale Avenue.
I'm sorry, what's your last name?
Dagergaard. Dagergard.
Thank you.
Love Swarthmore, by the way. Thank you for welcoming us. We feel really welcome. Kids love it. We love it. Live on 209 Yale, and of course we moved in April. We've been in the area, we lived in media for a year before we moved here. And of course, day one basically, we see the very speeding traffic on our street. I know it's been an issue. I talked to Michael, I talked to a lot of neighbors, friends that have kids, live on the same street. My porch, I see actually the speeding sign, so I can see how fast people are driving when I have my cup of tea or a glass of wine. It's kind of in my eyesight all the time almost. So I just want to address my interest in this issue that has been talked about, and I just want to kind of express my concern as a parent. That is something I see that we back home in Sweden are taking seriously in residential areas. That reducing speed in residential areas where there's a lot of kids in schools is a big issue. Where areas only allow 17 miles an hour on these kinds of streets. There are the speeding cameras. I know that has not really been passed, that law yet, but very effective. So it's much more me saying that I'd like to support this any way I can. I put out the signs on my front yard where it says, drive like your kids live here. We're trying to be out there, but it's a very narrow pathway as well. The grass close to the street, so it doesn't feel safe to be out walking and driving or riding the bikes with the kids. So that's kind of mostly my concern, that to get speed down is primary, and I trust you to find the best solution. I heard there are different paths, but it's primarily what I wanted to say, and I thank you for your time. To listen to me. I can stay for half an hour, and I'm happy to experience this political system, being part of this, my first borough meeting. Everyone's in Parks and Recreation, and now I'm living it. This is great. Thank you, everyone.
Tack så mycket, Tobias.
Great, thank you. Varsågod.
Good evening, Council. I think most of you remember me from when I've spoken prior. My name is Michael Harrer. I live at 115 Yale Avenue in Swarthmore. And I'm here to talk about Yale Avenue, no surprise. Tobias was one of the newer neighbors who does have children that live on our street, and so after he moved in, I guess I met his wife. They're out with the children. I just wanted to make sure they were familiar with what was going on and talk to him a little about that and his connection with Sweden. A couple of things I wanted to talk to about. Some of this I've mentioned before, and pardon me for doing it, but it's been a while. I got into this because I noticed a couple of things. One, that there were what I would call a record number of children living in the 100 block of Yale Avenue, probably more than there have ever been. As well as the speeds of the cars driving down Yale Avenue, which I thought were fairly excessive. through the help of the borough having a process to address this through petition, and also being referenced to the Pennsylvania Handbook on speed calming, was able to learn more about processes in place to control speed calming, and also how the borough wanted to handle it. There have been two recent events that I think most people here are probably familiar with, but I'll repeat those. There was an accident on Yale Avenue in the 100 block where a parked car got hit by a car driving down Yale Avenue. The car itself, the parked car, was probably pushed about 10 or 15 feet into a telephone pole, and I believe the outcome was that it was officially totaled, both from damage in the rear where it was hit and also from the damage it sustained when it got pushed into the pole. It takes quite a lot of force to push a car that far and create that much damage, and so that was something that obviously caught my attention and other people's. There's also, I understand, been a car that's been hit on Park Avenue in July with a similar type of outcome, although I haven't confirmed that yet, but that is my understanding. And then there was also an accident at Yale and Cornell back in March at that intersection there. Now, that's not the part that I've been dealing with. It's more background information that one of the cars ended up in someone's front yard. And so I think there is ample evidence that there's a danger of cars on and near Yale Avenue and Swarthmore. And the way people are driving, that is being addressed. We've had speed signs installed, which have had some effect. But I think there's some other stages that are perhaps occurring, and I want to talk to some of those. One of those was to have the speed cushions installed, and I don't know how many of you on Borough Council have seen it, but I sent out a video link to an area in the city that had installed speed cushions, and the cars were basically ignoring the speed cushions and just driving right around them, which creates its own problems. You put in one solution and you create maybe an even more dangerous situation. Perhaps unintended, but things still need to be looked at in a comprehensive fashion. And so there are kind of two lessons from that. You're trying to calm the speeds, and you put in the speed cushions, but sometimes people see other things or do other things that you weren't anticipating. You also have to be aware of those and hopefully plan for those. I think between the three things, we kind of have a clearing call here that Yale Avenue needs to be thought out very carefully, as I know people are attempting to do and have spent a lot of time doing it. I know council members and the Public Safety Committee, as well as the borough manager and other people, have spent a lot of time on this. I am appreciative of that. I know my neighbors, both one tonight and others previously, have spent time coming to council meetings to express their concerns. For people that are very busy, it's a large and noticeable effort, and I hope I'm doing it justice. I know there was a meeting almost 2 weeks ago now between the borough and some of my neighbors explaining how the borough is hoping to resolve some of the issues that were brought up in that video. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, but I do know that they were upset that part of it was that it's taken 3 years to get to this stage. And so, even though I'm up here speaking again, I'm trying to balance out, not continue this ad infinitum, because we would like to get to a solution, but by the same token, recognizing that there are unintended consequences sometimes, that to get to a good solution where we don't make problems worse is, to me, equally important, and maybe more so. And one of the things I was thinking of when I couldn't attend that meeting was perhaps an analogy like a doctor. You go to your family doctor when there's something wrong, and sometimes they can fix it or help you fix it, cure yourself. And other times you need a specialist. And so One of the things I wanted to talk about was that the trade-offs with the new speed cushion design, which was proposed. I haven't seen anything in a public meeting yet, so I don't know if it's official. But I would like to see everybody participate in that, because I'm not sure that there aren't unintended consequences with that design that people should be aware of. And not that that's not the best solution, but I think people have a vested interest in seeing what is being proposed or what might actually take place. It is about safety, first and foremost. It's the risk to the children on the street, the pedestrians, the bicyclists, the neighbors who live there, and also the people that visit, the drivers that come through town, as well as all the other people that use that thoroughfare. We have an obligation, I think, to them as well to provide them a safe environment. And so, on that note, I don't know where things are going forward right now. I know paving was supposed to take place beginning of September. I don't know if that's been changed. I know some of these things are contingent or going to happen concurrently with the paving. And so that's why I'm speaking tonight, perhaps instead of public safety, which was where we've spoken a lot of times in the past. But towards that end, what I'd like to see, both in an effort to get to a resolution that is both timely but also safe, is that a specialist be involved in this. Someone who's actually a real traffic safety engineer. It's kind of like getting a second opinion. When you have something wrong, you go to the doctor or even see a specialist. You get a second opinion. Everyone's trying their best to get it resolved, but sometimes hearing a different viewpoint, you pick up different things. And that's where I'd like to leave it at this point, is asking for a due consideration to a traffic safety engineering specialist to come and speak and look over what's been going on and what's going on for the future. I've seen some things that I'm the one who saw the problem with the speed cushions. I'm the one who, well, everyone saw the problems with the speeds on Yale Avenue. I was the one who took the action and initiative to get something done about it. And so I think I have a pretty good record of noticing things that so far have beared some, what do you want to call it? Support with the actual objective results that have been measured. So thank you again for all your time. It's very much appreciated, and welcome back to us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Anyone else care to address council at this time? Yes, please.
I'm Carol Menke, M-E-N-K-E. I live at 6 Ogden Avenue, and I'm here in support of the introduction of the Family Caretaker Suite. I'm very excited about all the hard work and what it represents for this community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would care to address council at this time? Seeing none, I'm going to call the public comment period to a close. And we'll move on with council's business for the evening. Lauren, the Environment Committee.
Good evening. The main thing I want to report is that we did meet last month, and we met primarily to hear about the Street Tree Committee's proposal to that council budget for a street tree inventory, which would be a pretty large initial expense of at least $25,000, and then like a yearly subscription to a cloud-based way to kind of keep maintaining the inventory. So, we're going to, we asked them a lot of questions and asked them to come back to our next meeting, and we're, please, anyone who's interested, please try to come and help, ask questions about it. it's very interesting, and the question is, is it something that will be really used, and how will it benefit our community? And I believe that we're going to be looking at examples of how exactly the software works, and I think some people from Bartlett and Davie, or at least one of those companies, are going to be at the meeting. So if you want to geek out about tree inventories, please try to come, and we look forward to some people coming for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Finance Committee, Michael.
Yes, thank you, David. Tonight we're going to briefly talk about the borough's annual minimum municipal obligation for both of the pension plans, and have discussion if need be. We're going to have a resolution next week, or next meeting as it relates to these. It's pretty standard, as most of you are aware. The obligations for the non-uniformed members is estimated to be $46,217 for 2019 before state aid, and for the uniform it's $295,158. And just in perspective, last year's, when you combine the two numbers together, it's about $20,000 less. And part of that's a function, we've already talked about, 2 officers going into the drop program, so technically they've become retired, so we don't have to contribute for them, but also we don't get state aid for them as well. So after state aid, it's about $15,000 less. So that's, it's really actuarially derived, so there's not a lot of mathematical questions, but if anybody has any about mechanics or the numbers, please ask.
Any questions?
I have one question. Jane, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add, just by way of a little bit of background, that the state does require all municipalities and authorities, counties, to adopt pension plan obligations every year by September 30th. That's why it's on the agenda. If you don't meet your pension obligations, the state will withhold the state aid that you receive, which you'll see that number there. Plus, obviously, it's not a good idea to not be funding your pension plan. So you might read in the paper, other places might be seeing huge increases in their pension plans, depending on what's going on and how they've done actuarially and how they've done financially in the past few years. So this is a state requirement, and probably a really good state requirement that we follow. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't have any objections to any of it. Just having seen the MMR sheets, I just had a question on the number that's number 2 for both of them. The normal cost rate, the 16.9% for the uniform and the 7.69% for the non-uniform. I'm just curious, what is that? What is that rate?
It's a rate derived by the...
It's the actuarial table.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's an actuarial table. It's not like a number, like a 16.9% increase. I think it's just a derived. It's unexplainable from this in terms of, we'd have to go back to Jason with actuary to tell you exactly what it means, but it's not what you think.
You answered, I think you answered.
Yeah.
But being an actuary, Jason loves questions. So if you like, I'm happy to give you his email address, and he does. Am I right?
Yeah, it's very detailed answer.
He loves to discuss, and we'll give you a very detailed answer if you say.
You got
If you say.
Thank you.
No, thanks. Good question.
Anything else, Michael?
We will be meeting actually this month for the Finance Committee on the 24th of September, which is Monday at 7:30 p.m.
At 7:30 p.m.
Yes.
Okay, great.
It's related to the budget stuff.
Related to the budget, right? We're coming up to that time of year.
Yes.
Any other questions for Michael? If not, we'll move on to general government. Sarah?
Thanks. We did not meet in August. We are meeting 2 weeks from tonight, on September 17th at 7:30 in this room. And it should be a pretty busy meeting. We're going to hear from the library and other general government.
These will be requests for funding for the coming year.
Correct.
Okay. All right, planning and zoning, Betsy?
Planning and zoning did not meet in August. However, we do have this ordinance in front of us. I assume everyone has Jane circulated. All right, so questions, comments?
I noticed one typo that I should have emailed somebody about before.
Yes.
Me too, probably the same one.
Well, let's see. It's a spot in the definitions. Caregiver, there's a spot where it says and, A-N-D, elder, and it should be A-N. Yes, he's verifying, he wrote that down too. So, that's the only one I saw. And other than that, looks good.
Can I just ask you to clarify the goal of this?
Yeah, and actually, the planning committee actually chose to write the goal in as part of the ordinance, but it is designed to address one of the recommendations of the Aging in Place Task Force. Basically, that we make it easier for our elderly residents to open up their homes to caregivers or to share their homes with family who can help provide care.
Do we have an idea of how the various requirements that would apply to a family caregiver suite would be verified or enforced?
Yeah, that's been a sticking point in this process, and I'm not sure that we've gotten to a good answer on that. I think it's kind of like with anything, sort of anything zoning related that, you know, you find out because a neighbor rats somebody out. Or the one thing that is in here is that there is a requirement to register the caregiver who's living in the property or the family that's living in the property. And so that would be, you know, if a couple years went by and nobody was registered, I guess that would be a cue. But, you know, our zoning officer doesn't run around tracking people on this stuff. So that was one of the concerns that the Planning Commission kind of couldn't get past. I think ultimately the discussion centered on the idea that this is something that people can kind of do illegally anyway, and we're trying to give an opening for people to do it in a legal fashion that complies with the zoning code. So, you know, that's not a perfect answer.
That's a good answer. So what are the next steps with this?
I guess the next step would be advertising it.
Right, authorize it, thank you, advertising.
Because it's a zoning ordinance, it has to be reviewed by the county. Have we done that yet?
No, I haven't done anything yet.
So zoning ordinances have a different adoption process.
Before they're advertised?
Yeah, you need to submit it to the county planning commission for their comment for a 30-day period. After they report back, you then advertise a public hearing, which has to be advertised twice. The hearing, it normally consists of, you know, bang the gavel, and if you have any comments on this ordinance, and that's it. But that's the process. It does mean that you're pushing out adoption an additional month.
Okay, so,
And I'm sorry, I think so the local planning commission as well, but that's happened.
That's happened, I think they pretty much came,
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got some.
and they're not meeting enough.
They drafted it, did they not?
They drafted it. They haven't been able to get to a vote on it yet. So it seemed to me to be complete enough that it was time to bring it here and start moving the process forward. So if they need to actually, are you saying they need to actually vote to approve it?
Not really,
Okay.
because, I mean, they're advisory only. It needs to be submitted to them for their review. They don't have to have any official response. It's helpful when they do, but if it came out of there, I think.
well, what's the process with the county then? Do they have to have an official?
They send back,
yea or nay?
yeah, they send back a recommendation. And it's normally a recommendation to adopt or not adopt, or adopt with changes.
I have one more question, and I just thought of this when you were talking about the reporting requirement, which I did read. Do you have any opinion on the legality of having to register the identity of an occupant of a residence with the borough?
I know of other municipalities that require that for rental properties. And that there are places that do rental inspections, and they are
keyed on a change of tenant, so you're required to notify them when you have a tenant, when you have a change of tenant, and identify who the person is. So I'm aware of the precedent being out there, having some good names.
Okay.
I don't know if it's been I don't know if it's been challenged or not, but.
Yeah. There's something about it, like I'm all for, if Jane is going to be able to enforce this in any way, she has to know who's in there and how it's being used, but at the same time, when you really sit and think about advising a governmental entity who's living inside of something, it sort of makes you think, well, is that okay to do?
Well, and we also, do we still have a per capita tax? The school district does. So
Yes.
every adult is supposed to be registered as a taxpayer if you have a per capita tax.
I think we have to do that anyway.
What, pay per capita tax?
Well, we're all registered as living at our residences, right?
For tax.
Only if you're the owner.
They didn't
Yeah,
know I was in my house. I understand.
If you were a tenant and weren't registered to vote, you can be
Yeah.
off the grid.
Off the grid.
Yeah. So just owners at this point.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
All right, so then I guess the next step is this will make its way to
The county would do the next.
the county, and I suppose you'll work with Jane.
Well, do we need to vote on it first before it goes to the county?
Well, if you want to take kind of a preliminary vote to make sure everybody is sufficiently interested and to keep the process going, then that would be fine.
Well, we could certainly do that. We can do that tonight. We can do that tonight, right. All right, so let's get a sense of council on this and where people are, what they think about it. I'll make the motion. I move that we vote on whether or not this proposed ordinance be communicated to the county for comment and approval.
We do the county and the local planning commission.
Well, the local planning commission has already acted though, right? I mean,
Well,
or
no,
they-
Betsy, if you feel like they haven't made a decision in the minutes, and you,
I think they made, the decision they made in the minutes was that they did agree to have me bring it to council.
do you
So,
feel that's sufficient?
Sounds like it.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, so-
Especially since they did the drafting, is that correct? Is that accurate?
Well, Jane.
With the
Yes,
assistance?
yes,
Decision.
yes.
Yeah.
They certainly have gone over it many times.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, are you comfortable with that then?
Okay, that's great.
So we'll send it to the counties. Is there a second to my motion?
Second.
All right, now's the time for discussion. Ross, any thoughts or comments, or Sarah, Michael, Lauren, Mary?
I'm on those committees.
Oh, okay, so you've been over this.
We've seen it.
Yeah, all right, great. All right, so all in favor
The
of,
mayor.
Mr. Mayor, yes,
No, no, I
please.
just wanted to say that I think this is a crucial piece of the whole Aging in Place Task Force, and I commend the Planning Commission for coming up with this and coming up with language that I think is perfectly acceptable. And I think this is, something part of the long-term plan that we're trying to implement in the borough, and I applaud its being here and for your consideration.
Thank you, Jim. All right, so we'll now have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries, and this will be presented to the county.
I'm pleased to be able to tell the planning commission that their hard work will be moving forward. And this is just a start. This is the first step in the process.
Great. Thank you, Betsy. Anything else?
We will be meeting at our normal time this month, whatever that is, the 20-something at 7:30 here.
The planning commission probably will not meet because their meeting is on the evening of Yom Kippur. So, and did mention that to the chair, he's not canceled the meeting yet. It's the night of, not the evening before, but it is the night of.
I thought they met on the 26th.
No, they're the third, not the fourth.
Oh, okay.
So they may not meet. They did ask if there's anything in particular on their agenda, and there's not right now.
Okay, thank you, Betsy. Mary, public safety.
Thank you. We did not meet in August. We will be meeting this month, but I wanted to make sure that for everyone and for people here who are interested in Public Safety Committee. We will not be meeting on Tuesday because that is the beginning of Yom Kippur. We will be meeting on Thursday, September 20th at 5 p.m. So not only is the date different, the time is very different. And we are meeting here in this room, correct?
You're up in the community room.
Okay, so we'll be up in the community room 5 p.m. on Thursday, the 20th. And we will also be entertaining a funding request for next year from the fire company at our Public Safety Committee meeting, if anybody's interested in attending.
That meeting on the 20th, okay.
Yes. And just also wanted to mention that we have now closed the application period for applicants for the police chief position. And I think we ended up with 23 applicants, and we should be beginning to interview candidates in the near future. That's all I have.
I think the police chief is also planning to present his budget because there was no meeting in August, which is when he often does.
Oh,
So I
okay.
think he will be prepared for that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anything else, Mary?
No.
Ross, Public Works.
Okay, so Public Works Committee did not meet in August. We will meet in September, on the morning of Thursday, September 27 at 8:30 in the morning. And we'll be continuing our discussion of the sewer lateral ordinance. That was advertised, but we've decided not to bring it up this week or next week for a vote because we want to take into consideration various comments from the public that came in on the advertised version. So we'll have an in-depth discussion, and anybody who is interested, please come. I spent an hour on the phone with a resident this morning on this. It was a very interesting and helpful discussion. So that's all I have to offer.
Great. Thank you, Ross. Appreciate it. Is there any other business to come before council at this
What about
time?
the sewer?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, this is, I can't believe I forgot this. So let's see. We talked about this before. You know what? I call it the Little Crumb Creek Force Main or pump station. Delcora came before us, the Regional Water Authority. They have requested a resolution from council. They've actually given us the resolution, and it's in form that's being presented to council. And the purpose is to support a building project by Delcora where they are going to put in a new pump station for the Little Crumb Creek line, make a connector that will help to redirect some of the sewage down to the Chester plant and away from the Philadelphia plant. And presumably this will help us in the future in reducing costs that are passed along to all the users, such as us who use this system, because they're increasing costs in using the Philadelphia sewage plant. They came in and made a very detailed presentation. They had engineers. They also came into the Planning Commission, and I was present, Jay was present with the Planning Commission so that we could share the committee view on this with the Planning Committee view. We had a lot of back and forth about it with the Planning Commission. Both the Planning Commission and our committee supports this resolution. And the bottom line is that I think they were saying, Jane, correct me, it's like, to do this work is like $4 million or something like this. I forget the exact number. It's a large amount of money, but we don't pay that, okay? It's spread across the entire region through the sewer system, so it's a minimal cost that comes through to the citizens on this, and it will reduce the costs ultimately in the future because we get allocated costs in this system. So that's the setup for it. People might have questions. Feel free to ask questions.
Yeah, I've got a question. So it seems like there will be a financial burden on the borough.
Correct.
Are there any other kinds of burdens or requirements that will result?
Not that we saw.
I think we're closer to 8 million.
Yeah, I think it's 7
Yeah.
something. Yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
okay.
It's 7 something.
But the bottom line is that we asked, is this going to be a financial burden to us? And he said no.
I'm just wondering if there were other non-financial aspects to it, but it's not, so. Mary?
I realize that that the resolution itself, as you said, is their form resolution from Appendix 3 that they supplied. But in reading it, the wording is odd. I don't know if it struck anybody else that way, but the one paragraph says the alternative of choice is.
Yes.
Well, because there were 4 alternatives, I think this is alternative 2. But I don't know if we're allowed to change the wording. I don't know if it matters to anybody else, but it strikes me, not only is it just sort of clunky, the alternative of choice is, but it makes it seem like we're choosing the alternative, and I just want to make sure I'm correct that we have no say in the alternative. This is the alternative that Delcora has presented after evaluating all 4, and we're adopting a resolution to say alternative 2 is fine with us.
That's correct. And when they came in front of us, they presented those various alternatives. They said there are a lot of contingencies because it's a chicken and an egg thing where they need to get everybody to approve this to start the project. Then they have to go out and actually buy property and get approvals to get the location for the line that they want. And if they can't get the property that they need to go in one direction, then they have to go in another direction. So they explained to us that that's why it's set up as alternatives. They have a preferred route that they would like the line to take, but it's subject to all sorts of buying the land, getting the price for the land, et cetera, and they might go to another alternative route. So it is a very contingent project.
Well, is there any room to change the language?
What would you
in
change?
it? Well, to
what would
say
you change
something
it?
along the line of the alternative of choice recommended to the borough by Delcora is number 2.
I don't think they
They
would.
would certainly make that change.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm happy to ask Charles tomorrow, because, yeah. So the alternate recommended to the borough.
By Delcora is alternative number 2, whatever the long name
I
is.
think what they're looking for is that we, I don't know if you want to use the word support it or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
that we
Yeah.
don't object to it.
Right.
We,
I don't know that I would put in option number 2, because there ended up being 3 different studies, so I
That's
think if we
fine.
could just leave in the wording of
Okay.
the new concrete pump station, that's
That sounds
a clear
good.
alternative.
Just so
we now
people-
leave the alternative of choice recommended to the borough by Delcora to be implemented, still a little awkward, but
Mhm.
Well,
it's
you can
construction.
just say the alternative recommended by Delcora
Yeah.
is.
I like that, without the
I mean,
choice.
without, you don't have to have all those other words.
Yeah,
It's
because
just-
we're not choosing anything.
No.
Yeah.
Right, and if they end up having to go a different route, do we have to re-resolve, or we're just
The
giving?
route is, they just presented us with the route alternatives,
Okay.
and there wasn't any significant difference in price on those. It was just, their preferred one was a little clunky, I think, in terms of.
I don't think
line
they want to
property.
come back to us again.
Yeah, I think they're just assuming that they're given, that once the diversion main is going in, we'll allow them to.
So we approve it however they can manage to pull it off.
Yes. One aspect, I mean, a lot of sharp questions were asked both in the committee, extensive questions were asked in the committee, and extensive questions were asked in the planning commission. And one question that the manager delved into was, which of the municipalities are having to do this resolution and approve this? And the answer that they ended up giving us was a good answer for us, I think, in some ways, that there are a number of municipalities that are the ratepayers in the system, but we get a yes or no on this, but not all of them get a yes or no, even though all of them are ratepayers in it. So,
Right. Some of them aren't going to have to pay for it and not actually
get to have me say.
get to have me say or required to say that they approve it.
Yes.
Yes, of course, sure.
And then the other, I guess, question I have, when I look through all of the appendices to this, and maybe it's because this whole thing isn't approved yet, but I noticed that, I think it was appendices 4 and 5, the space for public comment on this, and then for, I think, planning, county level planning review maybe, were left blank. Is that because that will come after we do
It's not,
this?
the review period is actually done, they've advertised advertised it and the review period is done.
Because I found it interesting that we were given this, and yet those things about what that body found and the public comment, I didn't see anything. And maybe there wasn't any. I don't know.
The public comment just ended today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there could be.
That's why there was no,
public
right,
comment.
in fact, they asked if we had received any public comment.
And we did
They
not.
said we didn't.
Okay. All right.
All right, so this, go ahead, Sarah, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I know we talked about that we're not paying for all this, but then who's paying for it?
It does factor
Large
into the
geographic
rates.
area?
It does factor ultimately into the rates. So the borough has a representative to Delcora.
Not to Delcora, to DC.
I'm sorry, yeah.
CDCX, Central
Yes,
Delaware County
CDCA.
Authority, which then conveys to Delcora.
Yes. And there are adjustments made to rates for each municipality based
Just in the
on.
central Delaware County or the whole, like,
Where does it appear in your tax bill for the borough or for the county or none of the above? Where will people, okay.
In your borough sewer
In the
rate.
sewer rate.
So the rates of Delcora pushes down to the CDCA, then get allotted to its 11 municipalities, of which Swarthmore is one, so your sewer rates will take
so
that.
it's 11, that was kind of.
So 11 or 12?
many.
Maybe
I
12.
thought it was an odd number, but I
I think there were 9 and they added.
No, they did.
They added Edgemont, Newtown,
And,
Upper Providence. It's a very old sewer authority, it's 100 years old. Started with Ridley Park, Ridley, Springfield, Swarthmore, and then fairly recently, in the last 10 years ago, the 3 northern municipalities added in as they moved off of on-lot systems.
So your question is a good question. It's like, okay, well, it's going to cost money. It's going to cost somebody something. Yes, it's going to be spread among all the ratepayers in the system. From what we have discussed, the manager and I, and with these people, it doesn't seem like it's something that people actually notice. The big strategic thing is that, and I've mentioned this before, that the Philadelphia plant has had situations where because of stormwater and various excess fluid in the system, it ends up flowing over the controls. It goes into the Delaware River. The Justice Department has a federal order against them. The idea here is to get away from sending more of our flow to that plant where we would participate in fines. And ultimately, this flowing more to the Chester plant should result in actually a reduction of our volume going to that plant and a calculation where our bill is lowered for that plant.
And it sounds more environmental friendly and safer.
Yes, well, and not violating the law.
Right, well, the law was just probably in place because it was it was hurting the environment.
Yes, this is a pretty big environmental deal, I think.
Yeah.
You know, like it's, our garbage and our sewage are our two biggest impacts on the environment of our community. And this is, you know, an important thing for us to manage it well and right, and they seem to be doing this right. One other aspect that I mentioned before is that by putting, there's a Crum Creek line and there's a lower Crum Creek line, and there are other lines as well. This new pump station would go on the lower Crum Creek line, which is further south, west and south. They used to pump it up and then over kind of towards the Boeing plant and then up towards the airport plant. Now more of it will, not all, but more will be flowing. But now they're going to have, the old line will still be there, so it will give a backup so that if something happens, they haven't had this ability in the past, if something happens to certain of the lines, to direct it in 2 different ways. And I guess it was like a number of years ago, they had a problem where one of these pump stations went and it was a real problem. Huge problem. So it'll put a redundancy in. That's just a side benefit. They're not really doing it for that, but it is a side benefit. So, any further discussion?
I just want to say the 30-day review period was in the Delaware County Daily Times starting July 30th, 2018, so it just ended. But the advertisement did direct the plans to submit comments directly to the individual municipalities, and we did not get any.
Okay.
So the idea is that we would vote on this next week?
Next week, yes, come over for a vote.
Yes.
Anything else, Ross? No? 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 Okay, so we'll move off of Public Works. Thank you, Ross. Any other business that come before council?
I have one.
Sure.
I'm not sure exactly how to do this. I don't know if this is a planning issue or a general government issue. Just during vacation was doing some research on transgender issues in our country. And I was thinking that it just struck me that we don't have a non-gendered, a gender-neutral bathroom in Borough Hall. And I think we should. And then I became aware that there's 2 bathrooms down at the end of the hallway, which are single bathrooms. Single would be very easy to put up signage and to even put a sign down by the other bathrooms directing people that there are family or non-gendered bathrooms down the other hallway. So I guess we have a little bit of a handicap accessibility issue with that.
I think it's not convenient, but it's compliant.
Right. So that was just something that I wanted to draw.
It's just a signage issue if people want to.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that requires action on council's part or what.
If you're supportive, go ahead, make a motion, and tell them directly.
Okay, fine. So if you care to make a motion, then.
Both of them could become, do you prefer, we
They-
can talk about.
Why not make them, I mean, what's the point? Just make both of
I
them.
totally agree.
Yeah.
I myself, well, I don't know.
Yeah. We could probably do some research into what
What the best term is?
Yeah. But, okay, so then I'd like to move that we redesignate the upper bathrooms as non-gender/family bathrooms.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion of that idea? If not, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you, Betsy.
Thank you.
Let's see, any other business to come before council? All right, Tim, any words of wisdom for us this evening?
Thank you, David. Just to remind everybody that it's fall, it's now September, makes it not officially fall until the 20 days or so, but and school started today, which there's probably people are a little relieved, a little, I think there's, no? But it's my yearly or my monthly reminder to everybody that pedestrians have the right of way when they're in a crosswalk, and we are a pedestrian-friendly town and have been working very hard at making it more pedestrian-friendly as we over the past years. I think the new crosswalks are working out really wonderfully. I think it's sometimes people think the lights stay on too long, but there's not much we can do about that. But it's very good stuff. Last week I attended the presentation on the Mariner 2 East pipeline, which was a risk assessment, which was paid for by resident groups, and by some municipalities. I bring it up only because I know the pipeline doesn't come through our borough, and we're kind of just outside the quote-unquote blast zone. But it's of importance to all of us because of, I think, the process that happened that allowed it to get as far as it's gotten at this point. It's kind of based on laws that were passed in the 1930s, which were originally designed to supply home heating oil to people in Western Pennsylvania. So the original laws were written in such a way that oil could be transported across people's properties and things like that. But it's being used now to transport a highly volatile cocktail of byproducts from the fracking process to transport them through a very highly populated area in Delaware County and Chester counties. And for the sole purpose of essentially selling it to European petrochemical companies to make plastic out of it. Which is, I think, a fundamentally different thing than providing home heating oil to people in the western part of the state. There were some issues, obviously, with the fact that a for-profit company, Energy Transfer Partners, was granted utility status, which allowed them to have to get access to the route and to run the pipelines in the way that they're being run. Their safety record so far under construction has been very questionable at best. The new risk assessment that was just completed signaled out several areas in and around the pipeline, particularly around pumping stations, which were deemed unacceptable levels of risk in terms of the amount of devastation that could be occurred. Well, actually, the metric for the study was deaths, how many people would die, kind of thing, and it was.
It's as if there were a leak or an explosion or both, or?
Well, so that's a complicated question. What it is that these gases are combined into and forced under pressure to become a liquid. So they're kept under pressure through the entire thing. But if they touch air, then they convert back to a gas. And that is an explosive event when it happens. So it's explosive enough that it would lift 4 feet of cover. If it's buried 4 feet down, it would still blow all that over. It could go through a roadbed. It could go through anything because of the type of material that it is. And then, unlike, say, natural gas, which is not nearly as volatile, natural gas is lighter than air. So if there's a leak in a pipe, it would dissipate. And it also has an odor to it that's put into it by for safety reasons. This material, they're not putting an odor into it because it lessens its value when they sell it. And it's heavier than air, so that it forms a cloud around. And if you breathe the cloud, you essentially drown. You die because you can't. Your body can't handle it. It's like drowning. So, for example, Glenwood Elementary School, the safety instructions that they've given people in the event of a thing is the teachers are supposed to go outside and determine which way the wind is blowing, and then walk the children, upwind away from the pipeline. Can't use a cell phone because it's an igniter, and if you ignite the cloud, then you get a fireball, and it's nasty stuff. And I don't know where this is going to go and what's going to happen with the whole thing. I just think it's important for all of us as residents of the Commonwealth that we understand why it happened and how it happened, and really kind of work on figuring out how to keep this kind of stuff from happening again. Because what we've seen with the risk assessment, even this first one, and there's 2 more to come, by the way, one by County Council and a third one by Middletown Township. The risk just seems way too high. I understand about this provides good jobs and does all those kinds of things, but we can find other ways of getting good jobs for our tradespeople.
Hey, Tim, the last time I heard a presentation on this, the blast zone extended to the Blue Route?
This particular one that I saw looked at 3 very specific places.
Okay.
So it wasn't near the Blue Route. It was one was around the library that's in Exton, and one was on the border of Delaware County and Chester County. And then I forget exactly where the third one was, but the third I think was around where the Glenwood Elementary School is.
Just worth commenting, if the danger zone does still end at the Blue Route, then
Yeah,
that includes our
it's
middle
interesting.
school and our high school.
When you look at the graphics and the way they do it, it all depends on so many factors, but which way the wind is blowing and how strong the wind is blowing and all these other kinds of things they're serious factors. So I think we should keep an eye and look for the county when that risk assessment gets done, because that's a much bigger and more thorough kind of look than this one that the citizens paid for. But it's something that concerns us all as like I said, as residents of the Commonwealth, and we need to keep an eye on.
Thank you, Tim. To This is a work session, so we have a second public comment period. Is there anyone prepared to address council at this time? Seeing none, I'm going to call the second public comment period to a close. Jane, do you have anything?
I wanted to note that the code enforcement officer has been back looking at properties for overland vegetation and sidewalks. Probably remember we gave people a 60-day extension on sidewalks, and some of those are now up. And he just gave me somewhere around 10 of ones that he felt had not repaired. So I'll go look at those, and they will get the first of the fines, which is a $50 fine. We also sent 4 notices out for people who had not trimmed vegetation, also a $50 fine. So we're sort of at the tail end of that process. There's a second fine that the borough assesses if there's still no action. Then the original notice says it will go to the district justice, and that's what we will do. And send a non-traffic citation to them. I want to remind everyone, I know it's under other business, it's just in here twice, about the next legislative session. I actually will not be here for that meeting, but I will have access to my phone and email. I'll get all the information, all the material out before your meeting, but I am away at that meeting for the Workers' Compensation Trust. So I will not be here.
Right, just to remind people, it's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. in this room. And that is on the original schedule, so there's actually no change on that. I think the letters from the community organizations are due on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. And I will send those to everybody. Of course, it's some of them, they're going to only speak to your individual committees. But there'll be, I guess, 6 of them coming in, and I'll send the packets out to everyone. Of course, you're all welcome to attend each other's community meetings to review. We don't have any under planning and zoning. It's SRA goes to the Public Works Committee. Sarah has 4, I think. Yes, and Public Safety, as Mary already mentioned, is 2. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jane. Bob, anything for?
Thank you, I do not have anything.
All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Well, sorry, can I?
Oh, sure.
So the next session is Wednesday.
Wednesday.
And I'm probably not going to be able to make it, but I could maybe be on the phone. And there was the email that went around saying that we might be able to do that for a vote, or how does that work?
So I'm going to have to try to reconstruct that email and then throw the question to Bob.
You're allowed to have telephonic participation if council has authorized it by resolution, which I think we did.
Which we did.
Okay. You need to have a physical quorum present, so you need to have at least 4 council people in the room. And you need to be on some form of technology that allows you to hear everything and be heard.
That's probably the rub. Is the form of technology that allows you to hear everything and allows us to hear you. We don't have like a polycom. We don't have like a polycom.
There's wireless, is there a wireless?
I could bring if you call my cell phone, I'll bring the boom box in, and we'll hear you really loud.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. It's
It's worth a try, and there's still a quorum.
Yeah,
Here,
if you
so
correct,
it's
so it's
not-
okay, but I'm just
yeah.
wondering, just in case.
We'll have a quorum,
Okay.
but if you want to participate that way, you can.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to have to make arrangements
Right.
for it. Okay, all right, thanks. Anything else? If not, I'd like a motion to adjourn. A second?
Second.
All in favor?
I'm
say
sorry,
aye.
who was that? I was, who was the first?
I guess so.
Tie.
And
It's a tie.
the second was?
That's
That's it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We're adjourned.